Leadership amid crisis. Helping Ukraine win the war.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Hill. I'm Managing Director and Principal Trainer for Hill Training Limited. We're based in London, England, in the United Kingdom. Over the past 2.5 years, I've worked with a company. Over 20 of the managers are based in Kiev in Ukraine, and I've worked with them very closely during this time. These are not only clients, colleagues, but also friends. I care about them very much. And there are many here that love you and care for you and want to do whatever we can to support you. So why these webinars? I've created or am creating a series of webinars at the moment. And as you can see, there is no script. It is just me talking to the camera. Then again, I also recognize that I'm speaking from the safety zone of the UK. I am not in Kiev, even though I have delivered training in Kiev. I did that in 2019. I am a leadership and management trainer. That is really all I do. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a politician. There's nothing else I can bring to the table. But I believe that no matter who you are and what you do, you have skills. And those skills right now are greatly needed in this wartime. You guys ultimately that are watching this, by the way, are in Ukraine because we're going to be promoting these webinars in Ukraine only. If anyone else around the world gets to see them, then fantastic, because there will be, and I think you've probably got this on the bottom of the screen now, some details regarding the humanitarian aid organizations that are working extensively in Ukraine during this war. And you will be able to get further details on those humanitarian aid organizations right at the very end of this webinar in the outro. I'm going to be very much guided by you as to what you want. So I will be reading your comments. I will be responding to your comments. So over this series, we will be covering topics like change management. Now, change management was huge for my company during the pandemic. Interestingly, during the pandemic, I did design a crisis management course. And I thought only a few days ago, hey, look, I've got some ideas here that Ukrainian citizens, Ukrainian leaders can actually get their teeth into. Why not just give them this material for free? That's exactly what we will be doing as a team here in the UK for you over the next few weeks. Especially over the last 10 years, I've also delivered a lot of trainings on conflict management, conflict resolution, conflict prevention. So I will be bringing to you tools, strategies, ideas from that particular course as well. You guys are going to need diplomacy tactics as you work together and build teams, supportive teams in different cities across Ukraine. You are also going to need negotiation strategy, negotiation principles. I also specialize in resilience training, in particular Daniel Goleman's work. I should have put the books on my table before I started, shouldn't I? Daniel Goleman. Okay, so Daniel Goleman, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, it sounds very arty-farty, doesn't it? Especially at wartime. But if you want to become resilient, if you want to survive this war, you're going to have to know how to manage your emotions, manage your internal state. What do I mean by internal state? Just sounds like some fancy psychological buzzword, doesn't it? Psychobabble, but it's not. Okay, so internal state, what do we mean by this? We talk about state of attention, first of all. What are you focused on? Where your thoughts directing your behavior? Because before you move, before you behave, you have to think and act out that behavior in your head, first of all. So what's your state of attention? There's also emotional state. What do we mean by emotional state? Well, what are the emotions that you are experiencing right now as you go through this crisis in Ukraine? Are those emotions helping you? Are they supporting you? Are they helping you your attentional state? Are they helping you to to survive? Are they giving you, are those emotions conducive for your environment right now? Or are you plagued and suffering and overwhelmed with fear? If you are not alone, because your friends, your family, your colleagues, your neighbors are likely to be feeling and experiencing the same emotion. Now, I know that is not going to necessarily help you right now, but do you want to nurture fear, or do you want to nurture more helpful emotions that will get you through this crisis? If so, I'm going to help you with that in one of the upcoming webinars in this series. Okay, so what else? Efficiency, productivity, performance, all of these things are going to be useful if you are in a position of leadership at the moment in Ukraine and want to empower your teams. And by teams, I mean the teams on the street right now, the teams that are fighting for your sovereignty, the teams that are fighting for empowerment, for freedom, for life, if nothing else. You're going to need all this stuff, and I'm going to do as much as I can to add value. There's not really much else I can do. As I say, I'm not a politician. I'm certainly not a soldier. You know, I'm pathetic at chasing my kids around the house. I'm out of breath. Okay. So I would not know what to do with an AK-47. I'll probably shoot myself in the foot. During crisis, you are going to need to make sure that you meet your physiological goals or needs, as well as your psychological goals and needs. So let's just take a look at what some of those aspects are then of your physiological and psychological needs. Physiological, we are referring to the air that you breathe, the food that you eat, the water that you drink, shelter, warmth. Therefore, if you don't meet your physiological needs, you are not going to live. That is first and foremost your survival. Now, unfortunately, my company, this is not something that I can help you with. Hence the reason why we are promoting the awareness of these humanitarian aid support networks and charities within these webinars. However, my company can help you with some of the psychological needs that you have during this war. So what do we mean by psychological needs? So in particular, we are referring here to autonomy, competence, relatedness, and achievement. Autonomy. So we are referring to your freedom to execute or exercise your will, your ability to make decisions, your ability to think, your ability and freedom to be able to think, make and act, make decisions, and do what needs to be done in the here and now without anyone imposing restrictions on you. Now, of course, if you've got leaders within your regime, leaders within your country, within your team that are imposing restrictions, behavioral restrictions upon you, comply. Okay. Nevertheless, what Russia wants to do is to take back or take away the freedom and that sovereignty that you've had for many years now. You are fighting to preserve that freedom. Now, how do you do that? It's going to have to start here. It has to start with the way that you think and the way that you therefore react to what Putin is demanding of you through oppression. So these are some of the things, obviously, that we're going to discuss, in this series. We're going to look at competence. Okay. So these are back to still your psychological needs. So what do we mean by competence? Well, this means obviously not incompetence. And if you certainly understand the 4-step learning cycle, we can go from unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence. We're not going to have a discussion now of what we mean by that, but through webinars that I am delivering to you and other webinars and support that you are going to get online, I and others are going to be able to help you to develop that competence, whether that is in goal setting, whether it's in planning, conflict management, or crisis management strategy. You need to be competent in the execution of the ideas of the business, or usually business models, but wartime models that I will be discussing with you. What else? Relatedness. What do we mean by relatedness? Abraham Maslow referred to the sense or the need for belonging, but your ability to be able to relate to one another, hence the reason for solidarity, which we will come on to later. But if you're not able to relate to those that are fighting with you and fighting to survive, and fighting to survive just means sometimes locking the door and not doing anything and just being maybe compliant under curfews, but nevertheless relating to those that are leading you in Ukraine right now. If you do not relate, you're going to drop your guard. You're going to give up. One of the other psychological needs that you have is the need to achieve. Now, some of you are going to get extremely frustrated if you are under curfew. You are locked in the safety of your homes or in bunkers or shelters, and you are there, restrictions are imposed on you and you're not able to act. That's going to frustrate some of you. For others, they're going to feel protected. They're going to feel like this is a time for rest and recuperation. For those of you that need, and at the moment, a desperate need to act, a desperate need to achieve, and therefore do something constructive. If you are in curfew, you're going to find that very difficult. Nevertheless, we comply. This is a time for compliance. We listen to Zelensky. We listen to our leaders at the time, just as I in the UK have to come under the authority of our political leaders too. Listen and abide by, comply with the instructions of your political leaders. They are on your side. And frankly, I can't praise highly enough what Zelensky is saying in some of his videos. He is rising to the challenge, isn't he, of being a wartime leader. So this is where you have to say, right, okay, we have to now trust what our leaders are saying. We're going to stay put until we are told to act. And if we then have to act, we will act in accordance with our leaders' instructions, because our leaders, therefore, because we believe our leaders are on our side and they are for us and not against us. So compliance is absolutely necessary. But for going back to this whole issue of meeting psychological needs, for those of you that want to achieve, when it comes to the time to achieve, when it comes to that time to act, then you are going to be able to release your potential and go out there and do it, but under the authority and guidance of those who know who have insights as to what's ahead of you. These are the visionaries. These are the leaders in times of war. Don't just act for the sake of acting. Wait for the instructions to do so. Nevertheless, okay, let's take a look at some of the other needs that we can look at exploring in some of these videos. That would be self-fulfillment needs. Again, Abraham Maslow, the psychologist, many decades ago referred to the need for self-actualization. As I said, we're not going to go into Maslow's hierarchy of needs, certainly not in this introduction anyway. Perhaps we might come onto it a little bit later. But certainly the self-fulfillment needs refer to the fulfillment of your potential, of my potential, of our potential. Now, when you are in the mode of survival, the last thing you want to think about is, how can I fulfill my potential? Okay, how can I be the best that I can be? What am I, some kind of athlete? What are we training for? The Olympics? No. But what you are training for is for your future. You're training to preserve the life that you have led. You're fighting for that freedom right now. And that doesn't necessarily mean fighting with arms. Okay. It means fighting here. It means making sure that we think right before acting. We think before acting. and therefore we achieve the outcomes that are conducive to the big picture and not necessarily just to the here and now. Okay, I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. This is the first of many webinars, but I'm just giving you a little bit of an introduction right now. Okay. So why would you need to consider the fulfillment of your potential when first and foremost you have to consider surviving? I'll tell you why. Your enemy is considering things that are much, much higher on that hierarchy of needs. They are thinking, how can we attack with force right now? How can we take more land? How can we take more territory? How can we cause more damage? How can we cause more destruction? They are thinking at a much higher neurological level, but also at a higher level within the hierarchy of needs. They're thinking, okay, we need to now execute and exercise the skills that we have spent years developing. So do you. I'm going to bring you, therefore, in these webinars, strategies, principles, techniques. So strategy is a step-by-step process that enables the achievement of a predetermined outcome. It's a step-by-step process that enables the achievement of a predetermined outcome. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, so let's just break that down. If you are a frog on a lily pad, and you have to go, this is a metaphor I've never used before, but anyway, if you're a frog on a lily pad and you have to get to the other side of the pond, you think, okay, I have to go from lily pad 1 to lily pad 2 to lily pad 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, but halfway through, you might think to yourself, okay, I think I can make it from pad number 5 to pad number 8. And you go, whoa, plop, and in the water you go. And if that water's polluted, bye-bye froggy. Okay, so what do we mean by this? The steps have to be predetermined, which means as a strategist, you first of all come up with the vision, the outcome. Okay, the vision goes ahead of the outcome, by the way. We'll come on to that in some other webinar. But anyway, you predetermine what you want. What do you want? What is your outcome, therefore? And then you say, how are we going to get there? And if you're the frog on the lily pad, then you go, right, I have to go to stay safe. I have to go hopping from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lily pads and don't cut any corners. So if you are a chef or a cook and you want to bake a chocolate gâteau and you have a recipe, you're going to look at that recipe and think, right, okay, someone here has designed, let's say it's Jamie Oliver, he's designed this recipe for creating this wonderful, chocolatey, delicious gâteau. But I'm going to think better than Jamie Oliver, and I'm going to cut out steps 3 and 4, because basically I haven't got those ingredients and I can't put it in the oven for that long. Maybe there's not enough gas, maybe I have not got enough oil, not enough resources to do it, or maybe just one of the resources you don't have is the time. Are you still going to get that gâteau, yes or no? No, you're not. Well, maybe you can call it a gâteau. Okay, but if you were to hand it around to friends at the dinner table as a dessert, they'd probably go, what the heck is this? What are you dishing up? Okay, so you have to therefore make sure that the strategy that you use is in accordance with what has been predetermined. Otherwise, you will not achieve that outcome. Strategy. Okay, so what else can we discuss within some of these webinars? The other thing would be techniques. Okay, so what the heck is a technique? Because management trainers like me would talk about strategies and techniques all the time as if they are one and the same. Well, they kind of are, but they also kind of not. Okay, so a technique. Okay, and again, this is my own definition. And sometimes I have to write these things down just to remind myself of how I've defined these things before. But anyway, a technique, this is my own, again, definition. So forgive me if you don't like it. Go to a dictionary to get another one. It's a process of applying skills to achieve a desired result. A process of applying skills to achieve a desired result. Now, the technique that you have to achieve a desired result, let's say it is riding a bike. Okay, so you are riding a bike and you've got a technique to be able to balance yourself. You don't necessarily execute the same strategy every time to achieve that same result, but it's still a technique. What's the technique? Well, it's a whole combination of things working in my brain, and I take charge of my nervous system, my central nervous system. So I receive the input of sensory data and I respond accordingly. My vestibular system in my ears says, whoa, I'm off balance and I need to balance right now. Okay, so I have a particular technique of being able to do that, but it's not a strategy. Okay, a technique might contain several strategies, but it's a way, I'll go back to my definition again. So it's a process of applying skills to achieve a desired result. So let's take a look at principles. What do we mean by principles? Again, this is my own definition, and I've always seen and taught that principles are values that form the basis for behavior. So you might have a value at home or at work, and one of those values might be ethics. It might be personal responsibility. It might be accountability. It might be camaraderie. It might be peace, which is what we need right now, isn't it? It might be integrity. But the trouble is with a value is it doesn't tell you how to achieve it. It just says, that's what I value. That's what I believe to be important. You need, therefore, a principle. And a principle, in my book, is an instruction to go out and do it. So a principle, you might have a principle of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's the principle. It's not a value. The value might be love, and the value might be service or servanthood, but the principle would have to be an instruction. Go and do. Do. Even the word do is an instruction. Okay, you can look at someone and just use that 2-letter word of do, and if it's your kids, do, eat. Okay, that's still an instruction. Very rude, and I wouldn't recommend it. But sometimes if your kids aren't eating at the dinner table, you just might need to look at them and go, eat, and put a little smiley face. But nevertheless, it's an instruction, a principle to do. Certainly, leadership principles will be instructional to help you to be reminded of how to fulfill and live out that particular value that's important to you.
Leaders emerge in crisis. Until then, there are only titles. Take a stand. Nicholas C. Hill.
So why decide to call this series Leadership Amid Crisis? Well, a good few reasons, in fact. Let's just take a look at what the dictionary says about the word crisis. So I'm referring now to the Cambridge Dictionary. Crisis, a time of great disagreement, confusion, or suffering. Ukraine is in crisis right now. It's a time of disagreement, it's a time of confusion, and it is a time of suffering. These webinars are designed to alleviate some of that, even if it's only a tiny proportion of alleviating some of the suffering you're going through. It's going to be worth my while doing it and worth my team's while producing these webinars. Okay, so in crisis, this is where people fight. Okay, this is where people fight on the same side of the table. So this is not Ukraine just fighting Russia. This is Ukraine now fighting Ukraine. This ain't good. All right. So this is where we fight over who's right, who's wrong, who should lead, who should follow, whose strategy is right, whose value is right, and who's doing it wrong. And this is where war can break out on the streets amongst Ukrainians. And this is what absolutely cannot happen right now, because emotions are going to be running high. Stress is optimal. You are going to find yourself in distress if you don't manage your state, manage your thinking, manage therefore behavior, listen to your leaders, and do the right thing. What do we mean by distress? This is on the stress curve, on the human performance curve. This is where we go from hypostress, into eustress, into hyperstress, and then into distress. Distress, if you get into distress, you are going to need to go into rehab. You are going to be no good to your leaders, Zelensky and others. You're going to be no good to your family if you get into distress. You're going to need support to make sure distress in your life right now is prevented. You need ways of being able to manage your stress, to come out of, make sure you don't get into distress, but to also come out of hyper stress so you can start to think strategically. You can start to think like a leader. You can start communicating in a way that inspires, that engages, that empowers, that embraces, that encourages the people around you. So then you can develop solidarity. Okay, so what do we mean by solidarity? I haven't got the source, don't know which dictionary I use for this, so forgive me, but a feeling of unity between people who have the same interests and goals, etc. A feeling of unity between people. When you are fighting with your brother, there's no solidarity because there's no unity. When you're fighting with your sister, there's no solidarity. When you're fighting with your colleagues, there's no solidarity. When you're fighting with your neighbor next door because they're screaming and cannot cope with the war, and yet you are peaceful, but you're fighting with them, there's no solidarity. We need solidarity right now. We need solidarity around the world to fight this war in unity. We need to join forces. We need to come together, whether that is NATO helping you, whether that is the EU helping you, whether that is the UK, the US, or Poland helping you. We need to join forces. We need to hold hands and march in the same direction. That is a sign of solidarity, and that is what you need right now. Wherever you are right now, if you're listening to this webinar and you're in a bunker, if you are in a tube station and you can hear your Ukrainian neighbors, citizens of Ukraine, fighting amongst each other, squabbling over who's got the warmer blanket or the food or whatever it is. And it's going to happen, guys. It's going to happen. Be the one that instigates peace. You're the one that needs to walk in between that argument and be the one that becomes what Virginia Satir called the leveler. This is a person that says, guys, we are on the same side. We need solidarity. We are on the same side. The war's out there. The enemy is out there. It is not in here. Show some leadership. Encourage your friends who are scared right now, who don't know what to do, don't know what to think, don't know what to say, who are in a place where they've never been before. And that will include you. Okay? Again, I'm speaking from the safety of the UK. Who the hell am I to tell you what to do? Okay? I'm not sitting next to you in a bunker, but I have been through my own crises in life. I'm not going to talk to you about those. It's inappropriate. We're talking about you right now. I know what it's like to be in a crisis. I know how helpless you can feel, how alone you can feel, how utterly in pain you can feel. But so do your neighbors. They feel the same. Highly likely they'll feel the same as you right now. Be a leader. Stand up. Take a stand. Step up. Do the right thing. Be a protector. Be a guardian angel. Think right. Speak right. Peter Drucker. Okay, Peter Drucker. Hey, Peter Drucker. Okay, if you're just going to get one book from Peter Drucker, this is the book you need to get. The Effective Executive. Okay, what Peter Drucker says is that management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. Do the right thing. Step up. Step up. Do the right thing. Signing out, I'm here to say, be safe, be strong, and be victorious. God bless.
This webinar was produced for the gallant people of Ukraine. It was hosted by Nicholas C. Hill and sponsored by Hill Training Limited in the United Kingdom. Please provide your comments below and subscribe to receive notifications of further chapters in this series. We now urge you to help with humanitarian aid. Please do what you can. One way you can help is to donate directly to any of the charities in this broadcast. While many charities provide support in Ukraine, some of the large international aid organisations are as follows. UNICEF works in over 190 countries and territories to save children's lives, to defend their rights and to help them fulfill their potential from early childhood through adolescence. Donate to UNICEF now via unicef.org. The UN Refugee Agency aims to save lives, protect rights and build better futures for refugees, forcibly displaced communities and stateless people in fragile settings. Donate to the UN Refugee Agency now by visiting unhcr.org. The International Committee of the Red Cross operates worldwide, helping people affected by conflict and armed violence and promoting the laws that protect victims of war. Donate to the ICRC now by visiting icrc.org. Doctors Without Borders is an independent global movement providing medical aid where it's needed most. Donate to Doctors Without Borders now by visiting doctorswithoutborders.org. The International Rescue Committee helps people affected by humanitarian crises to survive, recover and rebuild their lives. Donate to the IRC now by visiting rescue.org. From us all at Hill Training Limited, if you are watching from Ukraine, be safe, be strong, and be victorious.
Read Nicholas C. Hill's Professional Leader Magazine now, the new quarterly digital publication for leaders and managers like you who want to influence output, growth, change, and culture. International Master Coach Trainer of Leadership and Management Strategy with over 25 years of experience, Nicholas C. Hill gives you over 90 pages of relevant, profoundly challenging and solution-driven content, enveloped in beautiful artwork that you can read on any digital device. Our cover stories deliver essential lessons in leadership from the late masters of business, government, and non-profit. Our Thought Leader column shares the timeless wisdom of thinkers who changed the landscape of organizational philosophy and psychology. Get the leadership and management resources you need today. Purchase Professional Leader magazine now for only £4.99 on professionalleader.com. If you are Ukrainian, download for free now on professionalleader.org. If you are not in Ukraine or a Ukrainian citizen but are still benefiting from our series Leadership Amid Crisis, please support us in the production of these broadcasts by purchasing Professional Leader magazine now for only £4.99 on professionalleader.com.